Thank you very much, Cahirlook, and at the outset I would like to thank all of the members who made a contribution to this debate last night and indeed tonight, members of all parties and none. I think by and large it has been a very constructive debate. The purpose of putting down the motion, Cahirlook, really was to highlight the plight that borrowers face at this point in time. 142,000 families are living in houses where the mortgage is actually in arrears. A further 39,000 buy-to-let mortgages are also in arrears. And Minister, I'm not for a moment suggesting that the government isn't taking action. I know the government wants to resolve this issue, and I'm not questioning the bona fides of the government, but I am questioning whether or not the government is taking the right actions. And I believe, and my party believes, that in a number of respects the government is not taking the right actions. Essentially, our view is that the government has given far too much power to the banks. I think your approach has been deferential. I think by any independent measure, the protections afforded to borrowers who are in distress have been diluted. That is beyond question. And if you look at the key elements in the revised Code of Conduct of Mortgage Arrears, for example, the removal of the cap on the number of contacts that a bank can make in a calendar month. And I have to ask the question, if after 3 successful contacts where the bank actually gets to speak to the borrower and the borrower cannot pay the mortgage repayment that month, is a 4th, a 5th, a 6th phone call going to make any difference? It's not, but it is going to add greatly to the level of stress and anxiety that that particular family is going to face. For the first time now, those who have the benefit of a tracker mortgage rate, it's no longer sacrosanct. The bank can, as part of an overall deal, if no other option is on the table, remove the tracker rate now from the borrower. That's a very significant and serious development. And even more importantly is the reduction in the moratorium. The length of time that the bank has to wait to initiate legal proceedings has been reduced from 12 months to a maximum now of 8 months. And I have to say, in a very bizarre contribution last night by Deputy Ciarán Lynch, where he said he was very worried about Fianna Fáil's proposal to reinstate the 12-month moratorium. Well, when I went back and had a look at the programme for government, Labour and Fine Gael signed up to increasing the moratorium from 12 months to 2 years. So if he's very worried about reinstating it to 12 months, then what must he think of the 2-year moratorium which the government actually signed up to? Minister, you put a lot of stock on the issue of the targets, and targets are important. But the banks will no doubt now come out in the next week or two and say, well, we have achieved the target of offering 20% of those in arrears with sustainable solutions. Well, some of the banks have come out already, and the central bank will verify that. But what does it actually mean? What will that actually mean? What are the targets? They are required to offer sustainable solutions. And if you look at page 25 of the mortgage arrears resolution targets, there is an attempt at defining what a sustainable solution is. It is left up to the banks to decide what a sustainable solution is, and it can be putting somebody into an insolvency arrangement, or it can be repossessing the property either by way of voluntary surrender or indeed by a court order. So when the central bank comes out and says the banks have achieved their targets of 20% offerings, that actually doesn't tell us anything. It is the composition of those offerings that are important, and then what agreements have actually been reached. And we have to ask the question, Minister, why have we only had 144 split mortgages? Why have we only had about 240 permanent interest rate reductions? Why have we had no serious effort whatsoever to enter into debt for equity arrangements, for example? Why has that not happened? And that is a question that the government and the central bank are going to have to face up to. Cahirlook, I want to acknowledge the work of all of the advocacy groups in this area. The Irish Mortgage Holders Organisation, David Hall was in the gallery for the last couple of nights, New Beginning, the Phoenix Foundation, FLAC, and indeed many more. And I think we should listen to what they are saying, because they are actually dealing with borrowers on a day-to-day basis. Minister, I acknowledge that repossessions are inevitable in certain cases. I'm not burying my head in the sand at all. There are some people who would actually be better off to surrender the property and start afresh financially. But there is no doubt whatsoever that the way the structures have now been put in place, and with the powers that have been given to the banks, we will have unnecessary repossessions. And I think that that is the key issue. And we are going to be seeing a very significant spike, in my view, in the number of family home repossessions that are going to happen. How much time, Ciara?
We're just there.
Okay. Just finally, there is no doubt in my mind that the vast majority of mortgages can actually be rescued. I have no doubt whatsoever that they can, if the will is there. Now, and it's fine to say that the banks aren't doing it. The banks will act in their own commercial interests, and we can't expect them to do otherwise. But borrowers who are in distress expect that their elected government will watch out for them, will be advocates for them and will protect them, and the central bank will do likewise. Unfortunately, that is not what we are seeing so far. And finally, Ciara, look, Minister, many of your deputies came in and said, oh, repossession is the last resort. But can you put your hand on your heart and say that the banks are currently treating repossession of the family home as a last resort? Only today, I got an email from a lady in County Tipperary who owes the bank €38,000 on the mortgage. She has just completed 12 months on interest only. When she sought a renewal of that, the bank came back and said, no, the mortgage is unsustainable, we want your house. And the reason they want that house is because when they sell it, they'll clear the €38,000 of a loan fully, and their balance sheet will be fully intact. So we do need to look at what's happening here. The evidence on the ground is very different to the rhetoric we're hearing from government and the central bank. And the proof will be in the pudding when we see exactly what the banks have offered.
Thank you.